If you Google AMD RDNA 4 leak, funnily enough, the most recent reporting I've seen of something that isn't like a Linux driver thing is actually reporting on a recent discussion I had with Fabio from the YouTube channel Ancient Gameplays. Now, I am of course very happy to see that episode of Broken Silicon get some traction online. I thought it was a really good episode, but I do have to admit that I find it funny that at least some of the reporting out there was packaging things we talked about in that episode like it was new information. Really, what me and Fabio were talking about was stuff that I had already leaked in a Tech Yes City episode of Broken Silicon, which was rough RDNA 4 performance and pricing targets that I was told by people at AMD, and then also stuff from months before that, which was just the rough outline of what the RDNA 4 product lineup is going to look like. All of this stuff was from months ago, almost half a year ago for one of those videos, but the fact that people are talking about it again with new articles recently, well, it makes me realize that there's probably a huge desire out there right now for people to know, is there anything new that can be 100% confirmed about RDNA 4? And if there is, please, for the love of God, someone tell us. And so, yeah, I decided to put together this video that is just short of having literally all the information, but I believe is much closer than before and can tell you basically everything you need to know about Navi 48 and Navi 44, to the point that we will dispel some of the fake rumors that are out there as usual. And I thought that was important to get out now. So without further ado, let me put this information on screen. And first, let's start by confirming what I can confirm about basically all RDNA 4 products. So, number one, they do use monolithic dies manufactured on the TSMC N4P node. Based on conversations I've had this week, it sounds like AMD's node will be single digits better than the 4N node used by Nvidia Lovelace, but they're both from the same family, and well, if you see similar die sizes, if AMD were to pull off a home run, you would conclude, well, then AMD should be slightly better than Nvidia because their node is slightly better. The node is only slightly better and should not be looked at as a major boost or reason to have higher performance than an Nvidia counterpart with a similar die size from this generation. Additionally, I also have been told by multiple people that both Strix, which actually only uses RDNA 3.5, and RDNA 4 dedicated GPU engineering samples are currently boosting above 3 GHz, with some expectation that maybe some golden samples could hit 3.3 GHz. Could it get a bit above that? I don't know. Maybe slightly, but from what I'm hearing, 3.5 GHz sounds completely off the table at this point, but you should expect products that are boosting above 3 gigahertz. Anything more specific than that, I'm just going to say 3 to 3.3 gigahertz for now. And I can also confirm that right now AMD is going around and bragging about the FP8 and Matrix performance for higher tops for their new RDNA 4 products. And they do expect to be able to sell these cards for AI usage much better than they have been able to, depending on what you're going to use it for, with RDNA 3. And, well, when will these cards come out? I will talk about this much more later in the video, but based on what I am told right now, for a long story short, I can just say that RDNA 4 is definitely ready and able to launch in quarter 4 of this year, and there is a slim chance AMD could launch it at some point in quarter 3 if they really wanted to rush it. But outside of that, that's basically it. It will be out by quarter 1 of 2025, and they can do it this year if they want to. Again, I'll talk about that more later because it's actually kind of complicated. All right. Additionally, Navi 41 or 4C or 4X, at least according to the people I talked to, those seem like alternative code names for the same sort of flagship multi-chip product that is, of course, by now canceled. But I have confirmed, of course, what it would look like if you want to see that in a video that I've already done. And then, of course, the slightly smaller multi-chip Navi 42. These big flagship multi-chip RDNA 4 products that have since been canceled, they had GDDR7 memory controllers. But currently, I have no proof that AMD ever planned to support GDDR7 with their smaller die configurations. I cannot rule out that they might, but it doesn't sound like we should be so sure that they do. And again, I'll talk about that later in this video because I've actually got some pretty comprehensive evidence that suggests that, I don't know, maybe AMD just isn't planning to support GDDR7 anytime soon. But before we get to that part of the video, let's just confirm what I can about the specs. So Navi 48, I am told by all sources that rasterization performance is roughly between that of the RX 7900 XT and the RX 7900 XTX. Could it be a hair weaker than the 7900 XT? Sure. A hair stronger than the 7900 XTX and raster? Sure. But that is the peg. That's basically what what I've already leaked, but it still remains there, with an emphasis, though, from my sources that it's probably in between them, not better than the 7900 XTX, and it has a die size that is estimated to be around 300 to 350 millimeters squared. So, yeah, this is not a small die. I think there's been some people out there suggesting that this thing would be lucky to beat a 4070 or something. But that's not what I have from documentation that confirms the die size is on the larger end for a mid-range die. And also that it does have a 256-bit memory controller for that 20 gigabit per second GDDR6. And that means that, yeah, they will be able to do 16 gigabytes easily without having to resort to really expensive methods of getting to higher RAM capacities, which really is the point of Navi 48, to bring current high-end performance down to mid-range pricing. Now, there's also the Navi 44 die. Rasterization performance is above the 7600 XT, but below the 7800 XT. Now, I know that's not saying a whole lot there, but I have been told firmly by multiple people, basically, that this thing is between Navi 33 and Navi 32 in performance. So I would suspect it's plus or minus 10% of the 7700 XT. And from the sounds of it, they could sell this thing for below $400. So that will be an improvement in price performance. And that's because, well, the die is small, though. This is on a N4P TSMC node that is likely below 200 millimeters squared. Technically, I can only confirm below 210 millimeters squared, but I think it's probably close to the same die size as a 4060 Ti, but again, slightly better node. And then it does have a 128-bit memory controller, meaning if they want to give it 16 gigabytes, well, they'll have to use a clamshell system with GDDR6. Now, if you'll notice, there is nothing on this slide that says anything about ray tracing performance, and that's honestly because what I can confirm, and you're about to go, duh, it is better per compute unit at ray tracing than RDNA 3. I know, big revelation, but unfortunately, I don't have anything specific to confirm for these products in exact ray tracing versus the previous gen or Nvidia's existing Lovelace. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah, ray tracing will be better than RDNA 3. It is a major focus of this architecture to improve it. I do not expect them to try to match Nvidia in ray tracing per raster yet, though. So expect it to probably be a bit below, like if you had an AMD RDNA 4 card that equals the 4080 in raster, I would expect the ray tracing performance compared to the 4080 to at least be a little bit below it. It's really RDNA 5 from the sounds of it that's really going to go hard for ray tracing from what I'm hearing, but I can't quantify it exactly yet. And so I'm just going to leave it at that when it comes to ray tracing performance. Although I do want to go back to the rasterization performance a bit more because, well, the sense that I get is that, well, everyone is certain it will be at least around a 7900 XT in raster. I cannot confirm with anyone right now that they are confident it will get above the 7900 XTX. And if that disappoints you, well, I need to remind you, if you look on screen here, that the 4080 Super currently loses to the 7900 XTX in rasterization. And therefore, if the 8800 XT is 10% behind the 7900 XTX in raster, like it sounds like it could be, it would still be right next to the 4080 in raster, roughly trading blows overall anyways, which is all of this channel leak they were trying to accomplish. And so I actually threw together this chart here where I have added the full Navi 48 performance range that I'm expecting from my sources, both the upper bounds, which would be just a hair above the 7900 XTX, and the lower bounds, which would be trading blows with a 4070 Ti Super. I am almost 100% confident it will be within this range here. And then actually, I even added this blue little shape here. This is what's telling you what my sources are leaning towards. So while I can confirm it is between just below a 7900 XT to just above a 7900 XTX, it's only a 20% range. These things can vary by 20% before they decide final achievable base clock speeds and voltages and TDPs, what cooler they're going to use. That 20% range really isn't that large of a range, even though I know everyone online argues over which card wins by 2% or not. 20% is really a reasonable range at this point before launch. We're not quite sure where it will slide in there. So I could put out another leak that moves the blue box up a little higher or slightly lower, but that's what I'm hearing right now. Probably somewhere around a 7900 XT. I'm thinking a hair stronger in raster and a lot better in ray tracing, but that's basically the best range and estimate I can give you right now. And, well, I do want to address the people that I'm sure are undoubtedly typing right now about how disappointed they are in RDNA 4, that, look, Yes, I know. A lot of you were hyping up the idea that AMD was about to launch a 4080 Super killer for half the price of a 4080 Super. And I would say there's still a chance that could happen, right? I did not say that won't happen, but that is not the median outcome I'm expecting as of today. And the stuff that this channel leaked last year about and it was a range, the range of RDNA 4 performance and pricing, the most optimistic outcome was beating the 4080 Super for about half the price of a 4080 Super. And there was a range that was below that. But even at the lower end of the range, which again, I'm not saying it will be at the lower end, but even the lower end of the range I just showed you would mean that AMD is about to launch a product that is a 4070 Ti Super for about $300 less than what you can currently get a 4070 Ti Super for, and it will have even better ray tracing than their existing products. That is a big outcome. That is good. That is good for this market. That would lead even the worst case scenario that I am hearing, and I'm not saying it will be the worst case scenario, but even the worst case scenario for RDNA 4 sounds like AMD is basically bringing 30% higher performance, at least to the $500 price point, and then bringing like 7800 XT performance down to around 400 to 450 and 7700 XT, but with 16 gigabytes of RAM potentially below 400, and so on and so forth down the stack. That is just an across the board, basically 30% increase in price performance on top of a generation that already people are saying is better value than Lovelace. That does help gamers. That is a good outcome, and that is something to get excited for. Now, next up, what do we need to talk about? Well, I want to clarify some things that I'm hearing about GDDR7 support and even about what the max speeds you should expect for GDDR6 within products coming out soon. And it actually explains some of the specs of the PlayStation 5 Pro, if you can believe it. I want to talk about that and also clarify when I believe RDNA 4 will be releasing. But first, an ad from a sponsor. All Jessie wants this Valentine's season is for Maurice to play with her more often. But unfortunately, he just does not give out playtime or kisses for as low of a rate as she does. And I think she's just going to have to deal with that. But do you know what you don't have to deal with? Paying too much for Microsoft software if you go to cdkeyoffer.com. This piece of content is sponsored by cdkeyoffer.com. Whether it's Microsoft operating systems, Office products, or even many of the latest games, cdkeyoffer.com provides PC gamers with a product this community deserves. Amongst endlessly elevating component costs, fair pricing on Microsoft keys is one thing that we at least should get, I think. And you know, the Moore's Law is Dead team has been working with cdkeyoffer.com for a very long time. And that's because they're good to me, good to Dan, good to about a dozen family members of friends of mine that have used their services. And they've been really, really good, most importantly, to the Moore's Law is Dead community. So support this channel by using offer code BrokenSilicon to save 25% off Microsoft software, or you can also use Die Shrink to save 3% off everything else on the website like games. Using either of those codes really helps the channel a ton, and it helps save you money. So use those codes BrokenSilicon and Die Shrink at cdkeyoffer.com today. Alright, the first thing I want to cover in the second half of this video is what the heck is going on and really what you should expect out of GDDR7 and GDDR6 memory speeds in graphics products over the next year or so. And it really all comes down to this. First of all, based on what I'm being told, yes, the top multi-die expensive versions of RDNA 4 that have since been canceled, those did intend to support GDDR7, but the lower end variants, those were never planning to use GDDR7, at least for the initial RDNA 4 lineup. Additionally, from what I am gathering, talking to people at major memory manufacturers, yes, people like Samsung, Micron, and Hynix, basically I am told that at least for the next, over 12 months, only Nvidia is planning to buy large amounts of GDDR7. You heard me correctly. Only Nvidia, meaning that, at least as of right now today, there is no evidence that AMD is buying up large stockpiles of GDDR7 for anything, even in 2025 so far. And at the same time, I am told that AMD is purchasing large quantities of 20 gigabit per second GDDR6 for some product that might launch late this year. I wonder what product that might be, right? Probably RDNA 4. And yeah, none of those contacts wanted me to show quotes of what they said on screen, but they did say I could talk about this subject if I wasn't specific about who at what company said what. And that really is what it all comes down to. It is very clear that Nvidia will be using GDDR7 for at least some of their upcoming Blackwell products, and at least right now, they do not have purchases from AMD for GDDR7, but they do have a ton of purchases for GDDR6. And, well, then I pushed and I said, couldn't AMD also just use 24 gigabit per second or 27 from what I've seen in the headlines for RDNA 4? I mean, what the heck is going on with that lightning fast GDDR6 Samsung keeps hyping up? And I was directly told that the yields on Samsung's faster GDDR6 products are actually apparently horrible. And I was pointed to look at their page, and if you actually do scroll down, you can see that to this day, Samsung is only claiming that they are sampling this totally real GDDR6 memory, and that is what they were saying a full year ago, if you check. And in fact, a year before that, they were saying the same thing as well. For 2 years now, Samsung has been saying they've totally been sampling this totally real bro product that I had suggested to me they put out basically to just cover for the fact that GDDR6X is probably going to remain the fastest memory product until GDDR7 comes out by Micron, and they wanted to save face. Again, I cannot promise you 100% you won't see any GDDR6 products coming out soon that are above 20 gigabit per second, but every person I talked to at major memory manufacturers insisted that any product in large volumes, especially any products that care about price to performance, will be using 20 gigabit per second at most, and that in fact, Micron doesn't even plan to go above 18 gigabit per second because, well, they'll just tell their customers, build something that uses GDDR6X if you want something faster, which, by the way, this explains the relatively slow speeds, I believe, for the GDDR6 in the PS5 Pro that others and I myself have leaked. You see, if you're Sony and all you care about basically is price to performance for your product that you're going to sell at cost, then you're going to want to make sure your console uses memory that all of the major memory manufacturers can produce so that you can bid all of them against each other, and if one of them's cheaper 1 month, get the best pricing. And so that basically meant that the fastest Sony could go with is 18 gigabit per second, and any ultra budget products out of AMD are probably actually going to go for 18 gigabit per second as well. So I wouldn't even assume that all of RDNA 4 will use 20 gigabit per second. And yeah, there is basically a race to just support GDDR7 because that's the one that will actually be ready in about a year. And so everyone's pretty much not even really pushing Samsung to get the faster stuff out in large volumes either, because by the time they would, we'll be on GDDR7 anyways. So yeah, that's what's going on with the memory. What about the release date of RDNA 4? I know that I sounded flaky in that earlier leak slide. Well, let me explain to you now why, and I'm just going to explain it to you by saying these quotes I'm about to put on screen, all of them are from some of my best sources. All of them I've spoken to for years, and all of them are part of some of my most legendary leaks, and they just don't really agree with each other. So if we put these quotes on screen, source number one tells me that technically all this person can confirm on their end is how the driver development for RDNA 4 is going, but it is going very well. And based on that, it is well ahead of where RDNA 3 was at this point in the year when it came out. So at a minimum, this person expects that AMD could announce or tease RDNA 4 at Computex and then release it in Q3. And this person was surprised when I pushed back on them from what the other people were saying, like source number two, who said, at a minimum, Navi 48 will be ready to launch to notebooks by Q1 of 2025, and even 2024 sounds likely. Heck, this person could even see AMD maybe pulling off a Q3 launch, although this person seemed to think it would be a late Q3 launch to desktop if AMD really wanted to rush RDNA 4 out. However, this person seemed to mostly be expecting a Q4 launch or something, because there didn't seem to be any impetus at AMD to rush RDNA 4 out. They don't sound rushed at all. And then source number three told me, all I will say is that we, person at AMD, don't have any mandate to get this thing out the door in 2024. Don't misunderstand me. We can launch this year if we want to, but as far as we are aware, Nvidia is only launching the RTX 5090 this year for an absurd price, which won't compete, of course, then with the 8800 XT, and then the RTX 5070, which will be Navi 48's main competitor most likely. That's not going to launch until 2025 anyways, and RDNA 3 is currently selling very well. And so, unfortunately, this is a situation where multiple of my best sources do not entirely agree, and so I just wanted to show you the quotes exactly to make it clear why there would be any flakiness out of this channel about RDNA 4's release date. But, you know, my reading between the lines on this one, now that you've seen the raw information, let me tell you what I think of it. I just don't think AMD is rushed at all. You know, Nvidia is not going to really have any cheaper options in the price range RDNA 4 is targeting this year, and RDNA 3 is selling very well so far. And AMD isn't going for top-end performance, so the second RDNA 4 comes out, it will cannibalize all existing RDNA 3 products, and then if Nvidia is not going to compete, there's no reason to launch anytime soon. And I understand why AMD then would probably be loosely targeting, I don't know, maybe quarter 4 or quarter 1 2025, and then if they can sell through RDNA 3 early, yeah, maybe they'll activate it to come out sooner rather than later. But unless that happens, they have no reason to do so. But all right, so that gets me to the final thing to talk about here, and that is, should you hashtag wait for RDNA 4? Honestly, I think there's a lot of good deals out there right now, and if you can get a really good deal, I don't think you need to necessarily wait if you're really eager to get a new graphics card. Like, if you're somebody who's using, I don't know, an RTX 2070 or a 5700 XT, and there's a lot of games you want to play this summer, then I think getting like a 7800 XT for below 490, or getting a 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte for close to 400 if you can find one of those crazy lightning deals, or a 7900 XT for below 700, I don't think you're going to regret it, right? Like, worst case scenario, you'll be, if you got a 7900 XT for like $700 or something, you will have been gaming all summer before RDNA 4 comes out with less VRAM than the card that you have. Yeah, it might be $100, maybe $200 cheaper, but your card will still have had more RAM and you would have still been gaming all summer. So I don't think it's dumb to buy now if it's a good deal. But, you know, if you're happy with your graphics card, like if you have a 6800 XT and all of your games still run fine, then yeah, you should definitely wait. I mean, in all honesty, what I would compare RDNA 4, you know, if you should buy now or wait for it to, is the RDNA 1. Like, if you're someone who saw a Radeon 7 for $600, you weren't dumb if you bought that like half a year before the 5700 XT came out. The Radeon 7, even after the 5700 XT came out, performed a bit better. It doesn't anymore, unfortunately, but it did perform better, and it did have a lot more VRAM, and it did have uses like for non-gaming tasks that the 5700 XT wasn't as good at. So I can see an argument for getting some of the lower high-end or mid-range cards right now if they're at a bargain, but only if they're at a bargain and only if you want it now, because, well, I did mention the 5700 XT and Radeon 7. Basically, the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to use something very close to the architecture in RDNA 4, and I do believe that's going to make RDNA 4 age very, very well, just like Polaris and the RX 480 aged incredibly well next to the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. So I will say that if you can wait, if you're happy with what you got, wait. You know, RDNA 4 will, compared to current high-end cards, cost quite a bit less, use less energy, have better ray tracing, have more modern features, and probably age really well as one of those bedrock backbone architectures that AMD supports for a very long time. It's not like if you bought a 2080 Ti for $1,300 right before they dropped in price because the 3070 was announced or something. And even after scalper prices, the 2080 Ti never went back up to what you would have just paid. So it's not one of those situations. It's more of an RDNA 1 after Radeon 7 situation right now, not a insanity RDNA 2 Ampere situation where the price performance uplift was just massive compared to the previous generation. And yeah, that is going to do it for this video then. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like it, remember to share it. Sharing this video helps so much, and to comment for the algorithm, talk about this
with people below. But then also make sure that you're subscribed to the Moore's Law Z YouTube channel and ring that bell button so you don't miss upcoming content. I do have more RDNA 4 stuff coming. I'm, of course, putting together a Blackwell leak. Frankly, you could argue there were some Blackwell leaks inside of today's information. You're not going to want to miss that, nor all the stuff that I have to say about upcoming Zen architectures as well soon. And, if you really do love the channel, though, the best way to support it is to join us on Patreon. Just $2 will get you access to the Discord to talk to me, talk to other members there. There's thousands of people that want to have polite conversations with you about what you think about upcoming products. And you'll also get access to hundreds of bonus pieces of content that have no ads in them, like Die Shrink. One just came out today, actually looking at GPU and console economics. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. It's just a bonus hour-long video without ads, and we keep putting them out for our patrons to show our appreciation, and because, frankly, there are reasons it's easy to just put content out on Patreon and not anywhere else. But yeah, anyways, though, no matter what, if you made it this far, thank you for watching.